Everybody hear me well?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, we have called this PIDE webinar because we are trying to focus on the economy of Pakistan. There are many people who are copying us now, but they're still trying to figure out what they're working on. They're working on COVID and they're working on the international economy. I think we've had enough of working on the international economy. We've done that for the last 70 years. We've killed our economy while trying to follow donor advice and follow international economy. So we at PIDE are trying to learn about our domestic economy, and we at PIDE are trying to do research on the domestic economy because we think that the domestic economy is where the answers lie. If we want to grow the economy, we have to learn about the domestic economy. So we are pursuing all sectors, all industries, and we are trying to find out what's happening there. We've got these industries that with very big lobbying firms. All industries have set up lobbying firms. Places like, we know that, I won't take any names, but every industry has a lobbying firm, and every industry is hiring retired bureaucrats, and every industry is going to the Ministry of Finance every day. People don't know about it, Ministry of Finance, and they talk about it, and the industries are going nowhere. Our exports are not increasing. Our industrial growth is very low. So we're trying to get to the bottom of that. So today we're going to talk about the pharmaceutical industry. I'm told I don't know enough about the pharmaceutical industry, but we have Shahid Mahmood who knows enough about it, so he'll talk about it. We have 700 firms, pharmaceutical firms in Pakistan. 700, that's a lot by any standards. But these 700 firms...
770.
Okay, 770.
770 to be exact.
Sarji, fine. But
they call licensed unit.
Sir, can I, one rule that, let's talk about the rules first. In the seminar, the rules, in the webinar, the rules there are is that one speaker speaks at a time, and then every speaker gets their chance, and everybody asks questions later. Because we don't want this to become like Hamid Mir's show, where everybody's talking at the same time and people are fighting. So we want to keep it very well.
I just also suggest that you ask everyone to mute themselves, and they
please.
should only unmute when they're speaking.
Very good idea. Please mute yourself. And
sir, everybody is muted.
Everybody is muted, okay. So what we should do is let the speakers, we'll have a panel discussion first. Sorry, I put up that slide, normally I didn't today. We have a panel discussion first, and the panel discussion of the panelists that we've invited. And after that, everybody gets a chance to speak. We let everybody speak because quite frankly, we want it to be a very open conversation. There is no holds barred here. The only thing that we do is not interrupt each other, that's all. Now, that's the issue. So now today we have got some very good speakers. We've got Aisha Haq from the Pharma Bureau. She represents the large pharmaceuticals. We've got Sheikh Kaisar Waheed, ex-president of the Pakistan Pharmaceutical Manufacturers. So these guys know a lot about pharmaceutical industry. Waheed Saab has been a manufacturer himself. He's been the ex-president. Aisha has been working with the Pharma Bureau for a while. She represents them. She's a well-known pharma person. I think Radiullah Saab couldn't make it, and Samia couldn't make it. So fine, we'll do without them. And we've got Shahid Mahmood, research fellow at PIDE, who's been researching the pharmaceutical industry for the last few years. So let's proceed. So I was saying we've got 770 pharmaceutical firms, which is a lot of firms. But at the same time, we have a shortage of medicines in the market. There are a number of medicines that I personally have noticed, and other people tell me too, number of medicines that you can't get here. At the same time, what I learn is we don't make our own molecules. So all we are doing is another automobile assembling plant that we import the molecules, we make the pills, and we sell them. So it's basically an assembly outfit rather than. Third item is we don't do any R&D at all. Fourth item is that in terms of the COVID response, India is going to be apparently, if you believe the news media, although it's too early to tell, we can't tell, that India is going to be the first line. When the vaccine comes out, India will be making the vaccine, not us. So given that, I want to understand, is the pharmaceutical industry ready to take on the challenge of the world? Or is the pharmaceutical industry going to be another automobile industry, which is going to be protected for the rest of our lives? The fifth issue is that we've got prices now increasing very rapidly. I think our prices are increasing probably faster than the world prices. So these are the issues there. And I think, Shahid, we should have got the Drug Regulatory Authority, which we didn't. But next time, we try and hold these seminars, not once, but 2 or 3, 4 times, because we want to learn about the industry. So we should get the Drug Regulatory Authority too next time. But let's begin to learn about the pharmaceutical industry. I would be very happy to learn about it. I know nothing about it. So Shahid Sab, can you please start leading the discussion? And I want everybody to please, if possible, make your answers as short as possible, as informative as possible, so that we can have a rolling dialogue. Shahid Sab, can you please quickly lay out the discussion and raise questions so that our experts can respond?
So thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'll quickly go through a simple sort of presentation about the industry and the kind of challenges that it faces and the kind of issues that plague its working. So if we can next move on to the next slide. Okay, so what's the basic information is that there are about, as Sheikh Saab said, I thought it was 750 firms, but it's now 752 firms. Quite interestingly, if you go to the regulator's website and they've presented a geotagged version of firms, they say that it's only 639 firms that are in operations rather than 772. Okay, the estimated size is around $3.1 billion, the Pakistani pharmaceutical market. 3.1 billion, a little bit more, which is only 0.3% of the global volume. The global pharmaceutical market is more than $1.1 trillion. In terms of product sales, it's a skewed structure. Top 100 firms have 95% of the market share, with top 50 firms having a share of almost 89%. The remaining 650 or so firms have to do with the remaining 5%. Out of the total sales, 80% products are manufactured in Pakistan, while 20% are imported. The exports of this sector, they stood at $211 million in 2018-19. Compare this to India's pharmaceutical exports, they were $19.6 billion in the same time. The industry employs 150,000 individuals directly and about 300,000 people indirectly. Now, 95% of the raw material and active pharmaceutical ingredients for manufacturing are imported, mainly from China and India. Multinational corporations or MNCs produce patent or originator brand medicines, while domestic firms produce generics, which are cheaper versions of the originator brands. MNCs used to have around 60% of the market share, but now it's around 40%. Domestic pharmaceutical companies now account for 60% of the market share. Foreign direct investment in the pharmaceutical sector, it's almost negligible. In 2018-19, it was approximately $26 million. At the same, within the same period, the FDI and Indian pharmaceutical industry, if you make a comparison, it was $26 billion. Now, the main regulator of this industry is DRAP, Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan. Some of the issues that impede the working or optimum working of this sector, although if you see the CAGR, which is the compound annual growth rate of pharmaceutical industry, it's around a respectable 12% in the last 5 years, but it does not mean that the industry does not face any issue. In fact, it does face many issues. The main issue is that no industry in Pakistan is so heavily regulated as the pharmaceutical industry. From initial registration to the final retail price, everything is decided by the government and not by anybody else. Then the most contentious issue, and I'm sure that the participants, especially Aisha and Dr. Kasser, would bear it out, that the pricing of medicines, that has historically been the most contentious issue. No concept of market forces determining prices here. It's the regulator that finalizes the prices, sales price, which has to be approved by the cabinet. So basically it's a political decision. It's not a market-based decision. The most notable instance in this regard, which is a good reflection of what the government policies are towards this sector, it's a complete price freeze. believe it or not, for 12 years, between 2001 and 2013, the government did not allow, except for a few hardship cases, government did not allow the prices of medicines to increase, while in the same time, the cost of production really skyrocketed. Uh, then there were two new pricing policies when DRAP was formed in 2012. There were two new pricing, 2015, one was in 2015, and then after Supreme Court's intervention, there was another pricing policy in 2018. The 2018 policy uses reference pricing and allows increase relative to the consumer price index with a cap of 7% for essential medicines and 10% for all others. Overall, if you ask the industry people, they are relatively, compared to what they had before, they are satisfied if we talk about the 2018 pricing policy. But it doesn't mean that it's all smooth sailing under this policy. Last year, a special audit was carried out when the prices were increased, and there was quite a bit of hue and cry in the media. Special audit carried out, and the special audit claimed that there were several anomalies in the pricing methodology of the 2018 formulation, which means that we are not going to see the end of this pricing saga or the pricing controversies. It's very likely to continue even in the future. Now, what were the fallouts from some of the fallouts from administered pricing? Out of the approximately 65 to 70,000 registered medicines, hardly 10,000 were being produced by 2018. Frankly speaking, it became financially infeasible to produce many medicines because cost is greater than the retail price. Why would a commercial venture or industry produce anything where the cost is more than the retail price? Now, drug shortages, especially given the price freeze policies between 2001 to 2013, drug shortages became pervasive and prevalent. Many medicines that were produced domestically had to be imported and sold at almost 3 times or more. No significant FDI is coming in. Many multinational corporations have left the country or divested away from manufacturing medicines. And main reason that they cite is the pricing policy. And then there were some adverse consequences. One of them was some producers turning to other methods, like producing under the banner of alternate or nutraceuticals category, which have relatively deregulated prices. Now, other issues that confront the industry, some of them, contract manufacturing, toll manufacturing, it's a global practice, but somehow, for some reason, regulators in Pakistan have been very averse to it. In India, contract manufacturing is equivalent, its worth is around $36 billion. It produces jobs, it produces economic activities, but in Pakistan, it's not allowed, or if it is allowed, it's at a very small scale. No, there is no idea, no logic why the regulators wouldn't allow it. At least we haven't heard it. Perhaps the industry people can shed some light on it. Then there are issues related to registration time of drugs. Sometimes it's too long. There are on DRAP's website, you will find cases that go back to 2013 and 14, which are still pending a decision by the regulator. Then official policies leading to loss of nearby markets like Afghanistan, sorry, not Pakistan, but Afghanistan. That's why one of the reasons that we invited Dr. Raza, because we would have loved to hear his opinion from somebody up north who's involved in manufacturing. Then there is no IP protection. No firm would do any serious research. It's a disincentive for research if you don't afford property rights to manufacturers. Lack of quality infrastructure. There is no FDA approved lab. FDA is the Federal Drug Authority in United States of America. That's the gold standard as far as global quality of medicines is concerned. You need to have an FDA approved lab. Now remember that since 1976, government has been charging a tax equivalent to 1% of gross sales from the pharmaceutical industry for this very purpose, that they would do some research and establish the required infrastructure. But still, Pakistan lacks a lot in terms of quality infrastructure in this sector. Then there is lack of human capital and quality human capital. It's not coming through. Industry officials usually complain of this issue too. And briefly, if you turn to the regulator, DRAP, it was founded in 2013 after deaths at the Punjab Cardiovascular Institute due to a substandard medicines, administration of substandard medicines. Formerly, the industry was regulated under the 1976 Act. There are 3 main boards: Policy Board, Licensing Board, Registration Board, and there are 14 subdivisions tasked with carrying out the work and directions of DRAP. Compared to pre-DRAP, post-DRAP regulatory performance has been turned comparatively satisfactory. Whoever has studied it, they say that it's better than before, but not completely satisfactory. Significant challenges remain. Some of them are limited resources, both monetary and qualified human capital. Believe it or not, for almost 772 production units, there are a total of 26 drug inspectors. And there are, remember, there are an estimated 60,000 or more outlets selling medicines. So there are only 26 drug inspectors at the federal level to go around and look after this task. The prevalence of substandard or poor quality medicines, it's greatly exaggerated in Pakistan. Actually, it's anywhere between not more than 3%, 3 to 4%, but still the problem is there. And it's a failure to control this continued recurrence of this ineffective or substandard medicines. Provision of quality infrastructure, I just talked about it. No single not even a single FDA approved lab in Pakistan. And there is, it's not that the regulator hasn't got any financial resources in this regard to set up quality infrastructure. Since 1976, they have been collecting tax under this banner, but there is no account of where the money went, how much was collected, and what has it been spent on, if it has been spent at all. Now, continued failure to ensure availability of essential life-saving medicines. Hardly 15% of essential medicines are available at public institutions, while 30% are available in the private sector. Failure to stop deceptive marketing practices, doctor-producer collusion, and oversubscription of medicines by doctors. These are some of the issues that regulators should have been looking at and should have taken care of, but these are persistent issues that keep resurfacing again and again. Then there are some, I talked about deceptive marketing practices. Some of the firms do indulge in it. There is a perception that the generic brands are sold as branded generics under the banner of branded generics. What that does is that it's price differentiation tactic that hasn't been controlled. And then at last, I'll finish by looking at the public perception of the industry. Overall, it's a very negative perception, thanks largely to our media. Recently, the Chief Justice termed the industry as a mafia during a court hearing. And overall in the print media, the representation is pretty negative. So for example, whenever there is a price increase of 5 rupees, that's not a lot, but the media would always present it in terms of percentages, which makes it looks great, around 50 to 70%. And it results in a huge outcry. Ye itni zyada medicine ki prices increase, kya zulm ho raha hai? Now media, and mind you, media never mentions that many pharmaceutical firms run charitable initiatives too. And this industry is one of the top taxpayers in the country. This is almost never mentioned. So I'll stop here, and just a few three observations from what I've learned from my experience. My experience suggests the issue is that till now the government couldn't realize or hasn't realized that this is a commercial venture. This is a commercial undertaking, and they treat it as some kind of charitable undertaking. That's one of the reasons that they are so hell-bent upon administering prices and not allowing the industry or not allowing the market forces to determine the prices through competition. As Dr. Nadeem rightly mentioned, that there are more than 700. Now, if there are 772 firms, prices should be determined by competition, but no, it's not the issue over here. Then there is the issue, the regulator, because it wants to regulate almost everything, but it doesn't have the resources and the capacity. And third, the issues related to this industry, they've been made so controversial, especially the issue of pricing. It has been made so controversial that even a small, okay, I'll finish. So it has been made so controversial. Sorry, okay.
Aisha Bibi, bataiye, please, can you tell us what are the issues here? I mean, is it just the government fault? Is it the industry's fault? How should we get a globally competitive industry? Or should it be like the car industry? We should shut this down too. Because 0.3% of GDP, 150,000 workers doesn't impress me at all. In fact, 0.3% of the GDP, maybe we should just shut it up. 0.3% of the world market, we should just shut it up. It's 3.1 billion, which is like nothing. So what have you guys achieved in the last so many years?
I think, rather than go into what the industry has achieved or not achieved, I think, first of all, one must really thank Shahid for his excellent presentation, because I think he's picked up every single issue that this industry is confronted with. I represent the multinational companies operating in Pakistan. There are 24 multinationals. They used to have 80% of the market, then 60, and now it's 40 something, 44% approximately, which is a significant amount of the market for 24 companies. And the reason is that these MNCs are the people who are making the cheapest, lowest price drugs, because these are the old molecules. These are old medicines. These are first line drugs, what we call first line drugs. And Kaisar Wahid Saab will confirm that as well. They've been making them for the last 60, 70 years. So, and those drugs are your first line of defense against any disease. Now, if you price that drug out of the market by making it so unviable to manufacture, then you leave the consumer with absolutely nothing. Either they have to pay 5 times or 10 times for an alternative, or they buy something that is smuggled, because remember, there is no import of these drugs. Any drug that's manufactured in Pakistan cannot be imported. So if you are manufacturing, say, paracetamol in Pakistan, you can't import it. It is smuggled in. What you get in the supermarkets and things that people say, "Hame imported paracetamol," no, that is smuggled. So, let's just unravel this whole problem a bit. As Shahid said, the government does not treat pharmaceuticals as an industry. They treat it as a philanthropy. And it's not. It is a commercial venture. It costs approximately $3 to $4 billion to bring a new drug to market. $3 to $4 billion. That is the research behind bringing some new safe medicine to the market. We're looking in a time of a pandemic where everyone is running around trying to find a vaccine for COVID. It is costing billions and billions and billions of dollars. There are 180 companies now working on this, trying to do something. So you can imagine the amount of resources that have been put into this. But in Pakistan, we only create obstacles. So there are just a couple of things I'd like to say. One is that this industry has tremendous potential. And it is, I think that the downstream workers, the figures are lower. I think it's over 1 million people. If you look at pharma, and if you look at the fact that for the last almost 20 years, with 2001, the prices were frozen. If you look at from 2001 to 2020, there has really been very little investment in any pharmaceutical, by any pharmaceutical company in upgrading plants, etc. I think good firms, the firms in the top 100, probably are the only ones who are investing in upgrading their plants. So the FDI that you talked about, Shahid, that FDI is the money that the MNCs have that had some foreign collaborations, and they have brought infrastructure into Pakistan. One of the big problems, I think the biggest problem for us, is the fact that we are an over-regulated industry. The DRAP, as you said, does not have the human capital, but the country has human capital. We have tremendous resources. We could grow and expand this industry. We could compete with anyone in the world, but we are not allowed to. We are over-regulated. Every single thing requires cabinet approval, and cabinet approval is not forthcoming. The CPI increase that you talked about, it's an inflationary adjustment. It is minimal. The amounts that you get are literally in pesos, because you get, it's capped at 7% of CPI or 10% of CPI. So you don't ever get the whole amount of CPI. And it's just about enough to keep you alive and going for the year. But if you want to grow the industry, you have to let the industry make profits. You talk about moving to nutraceuticals, etc. It is unregulated, deregulated rather. And because it's deregulated, the prices are not controlled. So companies can make more money there, and so they do. And it's only right. A company is there to make money. It has to pay. It has to pay salaries. It has to pay shareholders. It has all its issues. So we have talked to the government at length on this issue, and we've told them that what you should do is you should deregulate pricing. Have a sensible, essential, and that essential drug, this should not be every single drug in the market. It should be a list that is workable, that companies are okay with, that they can manage with, and that essential drug list should be controlled. So you are guaranteed the cheapest possible prices for essential drugs, and let market forces take care of the rest. And if market forces take care of the rest, you will see that automatically companies will start competing with each other. Prices of what you call expensive drugs will eventually come down. We've seen it in every other sector. Look at the mobile phone sector. Mobile phones were astronomically expensive. Phone call charges were astronomically expensive. You used to pay for people to call you. Now, they're giving away minutes for pesos. So I think we really need to look at deregulating this industry, allowing the market to control it, and keep an essential drugs list. The other thing I want to mention is contract manufacturing. We have huge potential because we have the 770 odd companies, manufacturing units, which are not utilized. So if you allow contract manufacturing in Pakistan, you will see foreign investment coming in, because then if I'm a company in Europe or the US and I want to contract manufacture, I will come here because I know that you have human capital. I know you have the ability to do things. I will transfer technology, you will upgrade your plant, you will manufacture, and you can take your exports, which are currently under $200 million. Within 4 to 5 years, we can take our exports to $1 billion. But we have to look at this sensibly. We have to actually look at us as an industry, and as I said, not some philanthropic venture. As far as ethical issues are concerned, you touched on the issue of doctors, etc. I can only speak for the member companies of the Pharma Bureau. We have very strict guidelines because obviously any company that does anything unethical in Pakistan will get sued in its parent country. So if you do something like you try to bribe someone or do something and there's a case, you can actually be sued in the US or in the UK or Germany or France or wherever you're based. So that is a huge issue. The Pharma Bureau has a code of ethics. It follows that very strictly. Its member companies follow that very strictly. We have also shared that code of ethics with the DRAP, and we suggested to them that they should roll it out so that the entire industry can benefit from this. But that was never done. And but we feel that this is a very big issue. IPR is another very, very, very serious issue for us, because you can't expect people to bring innovative products to a country where there is no IPR protection. So what happens is that absolutely brand new drugs will not come to Pakistan until they're about to go off patent, which is really unfortunate for Pakistani patients, because you're looking at oncology drugs, things like that. And people should not be in a position where they are required to wait, because your country doesn't, your country gives absolutely no guarantees as to, protection of IPR, etc. There is a lot of money involved in research, and we need to respect that as well. Having said that, I will also say that a lot of the companies that do these oncology products, etc., are mindful of the fact that there's no IPR. So they do, in Pakistan, they do special patient welfare projects, where they provide these drugs to the government directly for government hospitals and also some private hospitals like the Aga Khan and Shaukat Khanum. And they provide the medicines to patients either completely free of cost or at a very, very, very minimal charge. So we are completely aware of the problem, but there has to be IPR protection so that more drugs can come in, more can happen. You cannot completely run an industry on philanthropy. Pricing is the most, sorry, I'll just finish in a second. Pricing is the most contentious issue. And we are of the belief that we need to remove from the draft, like is done all over the world, commercial aspects of this industry should not be with the draft and the Ministry of Health. They should move to commerce or an equivalent ministry like that. In India, pricing is controlled by the Ministry of Chemicals and Petroleum. It is not with the Indian equivalent of the draft. That will depoliticize pricing. We really need to do this. If we are going to function, if the industry is going to grow, if we're going to provide thousands and thousands of jobs and bring in huge amounts of FDI and contract manufacturing, we need to do these things.
Thank you, Aisha Bibi. Thank you very much. Wahid Saab, please tell me, Aisha made a very good case, many things, but the key issue is drugs are still cheaper in India. And I believe, no, I don't have enough data.
Sorry, can I interrupt you for a second? I need to correct you on this. Drugs are not cheaper in India. If you compare them drug for drug in Pakistan, they are cheaper in Pakistan. We are probably the cheapest country in the world. And the other thing I would like to say is that New Zealand in the developed world is the cheapest and has the lowest rate of R&D, lowest rate of new innovative products, lowest everything. And this is a problem.
Okay, fair enough. We'll come to you, Aisha. We'll come back. Don't worry. You'll have a chance to react. But the key thing that I want to make is I found that, for example, when it has been some time, but when I was in Sri Lanka or when I go back to Sri Lanka or India, I find that I can get more drugs there and cheaper. Now, this is casual empiricism. I'm not saying that this is correct. But the key issue, Wahid Saab, is that unfortunately, R&D, I don't care much about, because quite frankly, Pakistan industry is never going to be innovative. It has never been innovative. We don't do R&D. We're not going to produce new drugs, and we're not even going to get new drugs. My position, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't even get the full panoply of generic drugs. Even the old generic drugs we can't get here. I mean, I see so many people, for example, I'll give you a personal example that I've heard about people. Lots of people are pumping Xanax and Loxatinol to sleep. Now, Ambien is a drug that is used widely in the US, which is much better, non-addictive, etc., but you can't get Ambien in Pakistan. So similarly, I've heard a lot of drugs. I haven't done any research on this, just hearing from people. Lots of things that are not available in Pakistan. Wahid Saab, tell me, what can we do to make this industry more dynamic? Yet when I do a calculation, 770 firms, each of them must be making a profit at least 5 lakh rupees a month, right? So if you think about it, that adds to a few billion rupees of profit. So it's not as if the industry is not profitable. So this complaint about over-regulation, I buy that, and this is everywhere. But there's something else going on. Wahid Saab, can you please explain it to us?
First of all, please accept my compliment, PIDE and our colleague Shahid Saab for organizing such an important and vital subject regarding the healthcare, because without medicine, there is no healthcare. You have doctors, you have hospitals, you have diagnostics, but if you don't have a medicine to treat the patient, then the total dynamics, total paradigm of healthcare is just become nothing. Why Pakistan pharma industry is not going into quantum leap, whereas world is going into biologicals and biosimilars and disease-specific medicines? Why Pakistan is not going? There is only one reason I could see, that unfortunately in Pakistan, in 2010 when 12 draft was formed, the day draft was formed till today, it is on ad hocism. There is no permanent directors, there is no permanent CEO. It is running on ad hocism. So policies are on the day-to-day basis. And the officialdom in the regulatory world in Pakistan, they are so scary of various investigations and inquiries. So they don't take vital decisions, and they wait for somebody to tell them and look towards judiciary to help them and solve their problem. And that's what various number of times judiciary has spoken about it. Why this regulator are coming to us to solve their problem when they can do it. But unfortunately, because they are not permanent and they are on ad hocism, on current charge basis, so they don't take vital decisions. The other thing that which Tammy Aisha has said about the problem of considering this pharma industry not as an industry, it is something like philanthropy or stuff like that. That's a total concept with the people sitting at the harm of affair or on the power corridor. They consider this, why don't they give cheap medicine? And I quote an example of a couple of years back when I was chairman of PPM, invited into the President House, and I was asked why the essential medicine companies don't give free of cost to or donation as a donation to the patient. These kind of in Pakistan, the biggest problem is this, that in DRAP, they don't have an economic outlook towards what is going on the economic outlook of the world. How the total healthcare paradigm moves on. So they just look for the very nitty-gritty of the things, and that's why we land up in a problem. And patient, unfortunately, the ultimate sufferer is a patient. Probably I can afford, you can afford, or many other can afford, but the poor, the 70% or 80% of the population which lives on the borderline of poverty can't afford things. Why? They don't get the latest treatment, which is their right, constitutional right. They should get latest treatment of the world. But unfortunately, since January 2019, new molecules are not approved. Their prices are not approved by DRAP or government of Pakistan. So new molecules are not coming into Pakistan. So who is going to lose? It's the patient. So my humble submission would be that DRAP has to be divided into, as Tammy has said, I would vouch for that also, that it should be divided into two functions. The regulator part should go to DRAP, and all commercial aspects should go to Commerce Ministry, because they can understand business, they can understand the concept, what economies need, and how Pakistan can progress, the pharma industry can progress. You know, there was a report by McKinsey about a couple of years back where they consider pharma industry as a sunshine industry for the export purposes, but we haven't achieved. And Shahid has maintained about roughly here and there $200 million are being exported, and that 50% is going to Afghanistan, and that rest is going to the low regulatory areas, countries which has very less regulatory paradigm. So, but I think seminar like this, webinar like this, just said one thing, that there is a problem with the pharma industry. Pharma industry is not moving towards the new therapeutic modalities. It has to move into new therapeutic modalities like biologicals. In Pakistan, there are only two biological dedicated plants. One is National Institute of Health and other in Dog University of Health Sciences. Dog University of Health Sciences unit is not still functioning. They are going to be functional very soon. And so we are importing a very basic kind of biological from our neighbor country, which is our enemy. You know, dog bite vaccine and snake bite vaccines, stuff like that. Anti-cancer, we are importing from that country. But why can't we manufacture this when we have a robust pharma industry in Pakistan? Yes, only reason that unless the regulator given some sort of guarantee that their action won't be questioned for say 5 years, they should be given blank check. Then you will see in our neighboring country, there is no NAB running after regulators. They make decision, they make wrong decision, they make good decision, or sometimes very bad decision. But NAB is not, or FIA is not running after them. In Pakistan, every decision has to be checked by, there are if you can check with the NAB or drug regulatory, you will see every officer is submitting report to NAB or FIA on any action they take. So they are not, coming forthcoming to take right kind of decision which this country need to so that the pharma industry could progress. And the benefit of progressing of the pharma industry is not me and you, it is the population of Pakistan, because they will get new medicines, new kind of therapeutic modalities, new kind of new therapeutic treatment. This country need that. And now, as you rightly mentioned, that China has moved their vaccine clinical trial to India, not to Pakistan. Our friendship is higher than the Mount Everest and kind of thing, and deeper than the Mariana Trenches. But they are not coming to Pakistan for clinical trial, where we have infrastructure to conduct clinical trials. Maybe there are some here and there regulation may be needed, but still we can do that. So unless regulator need to, the government of Pakistan, not regulator are maybe good people, but they are not being given the guarantees, the kind of that protection which they need to make right kind of decisions. Government of Pakistan must understand this thing. The patient, the population of Pakistan need good medicine, effective medicine, latest medicine. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Tammy, Shahid, Wahid Sahab, whoever you wants to answer it. Can you please tell me, why is it that firms are still coming in to make drugs? 772 firms, obviously firms are entering the market all the time. Obviously there is profit to be made. Obviously there is competition. People are coming in, setting up firms. So there is an industry, there is something happening. I think quite frankly, there are rents lying around on the floor. So you can't blame everything on the government. There is something happening here. At the same time, I think this thing that you guys are using, I don't buy this, that we'll get the latest drugs. Latest drugs are not coming to Pakistan. They're too expensive. Cancer medicine is not coming to Pakistan. It's too expensive, right? So the issue is, what is happening? Can you please tell us?
I think, number one, you can't just say that it won't come to Pakistan and it isn't coming to Pakistan because it's too expensive. I think you have to maybe there's a philanthropic venture in Pakistan that will pay for them. Not, as I said already, make college. So I don't accept that. But I think that what you need to look at is the fact that these industries, the 700 plus, were set up at a certain period when the entire market was open. And I would ask Mr. Kaisal Wahid to elaborate on that. As far as the MNCs are concerned, the MNCs are leaving Pakistan. They are not coming to Pakistan. They're exiting. And in the last several years, we have seen over 10 MNCs leave. So that is a very, very, very significant problem, and it should not be dismissed out of hand that there is rents lying on the floor, etc. I'm sure there's, the WHO says there's a huge amount of counterfeit being made as well. So I don't know who makes counterfeit, which companies do, whether it's just made in this place called Kachi Gali and its equivalent. But these are serious problems. And what we need to do is we need to look at the serious industry, and we need to work on, on building that serious industry and turning it into something that will benefit Pakistan, not hammer it into the ground as has been done for the last 20 years. So I think Kaisal Wahid Sahab can tell you more about how the industry mushroomed suddenly from very few companies to 770. But as I said, there were 38 MNCs. Today there are 24.
But you see, the point is, there was 38 MNCs. Ji, Wahid Sahab.
Sir, this is Shahid.
I think.
Ek minute, Shahid. My point is, what Aisha has said is fine, very good. But Aisha, and Shahid Sahab, you can answer this then. The point is, if an industry is growing, people are coming in, there is something happening. Now, I've heard every industry say, get rid of the competition, make the big guys survive, government should do that. I don't think that's a good idea. Industries, if you want competition, competition has to be all the way through. and not just to favor the big guys. So even if they're coming in making counterfeit or whatever, fine, let it happen, because that's the way the industry goes. Now, Shahid Sahab, bataiye.
Sorry,
Sir,
I'm not to interrupt here, Shahid, but if you allow counterfeit, it's not a watch, it's a medicine. You cannot kill people. You can't be so dismissive and say, even if they're making counterfeit, it's fine. That is unbelievably ridiculous thing to say. Sorry.
There is the court system and other things that work. And obviously, if they kill somebody, they should be caught. It's a criminal offense. But at the same time, this business of saying, hey, it's my monopoly, I keep it. That is not also correct, because it is not a monopoly that has been given because you did the research, patents are over, generic drugs are there. So why can't there be competition? Why should the big guys be protected? Anji Shah Sahab, bataiye.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, sir.
Shahid,
Thank you for providing me. Sorry,
Later,
Aisha.
sorry. Anji Shah Sahab, boliye.
Acha sir, I'll try to answer the puzzle. In fact, I also encountered this puzzle when I was doing the industry research. And if there are so many hindrances, how come the number of industries are increasing? And there is no simple answer to that. There is a probable answer. And for the probable answer, you'll have to look at the percentage of allopathic drugs or these medicines that are, and it has increased over time. Now, there is something on the floor. As you said that there must be something on the floor. Yes, there is something on the floor, but not at the high end. Not at the high end, but at the low end. What exactly do I mean by low end? Like cough syrups. Cough syrups are easier to make relatively. And a lot of these firms that cannot compete at the high end, like neuro drugs, they can't manufacture it. They don't have the facility. They just set up a facility to make drugs that are easy to copy and easy to make. For example, the cough syrups. And they compete, basically a lot of these firms compete at local level. They don't compete at international level or even in big city level like Karachi or Islamabad.
Which is fine. Ji Wahid Sahab, bataiye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Problem, you'll talk to any pharma man, they will start by talking about problem and problem. Still, pharma industries is growing at the rate of 12% annually to 13% annually, despite we were thinking that due to COVID, might be the second quarter would be not that good, but still the figure pouring in still is going to 13% growth. Annual CGR growth, CAGR growth. Things are not that bad, I would say. Problem is this industry can turn around and become a good industry which can provide effective, good, safe medicine at the economical rate. I will just protest on the word using cheap. We don't produce cheap medicine. We produce economical medicine. Okay, this cheap is mean something very bad connotation, but we produce economical medicine. And compare the world scenario, even in any country around us in Pakistan, you will find out that if you can buy one medicine in Pakistan and go and search an equivalent medicine around any country around this region, you'll find they are expensive than Pakistan. Why this is happening? Because our cost of doing business, we have controlled that. Because there are many pharmacy colleges, human resources pouring in. So we have, but are they of international standard? No, sir, they are not. I do admit. We need to give them training, but unfortunately, now of traveling restrictions, that will be a problem. But still, DRAP is trying, or US this thing, their training is still today is going on. So I think things will change, but on a very slow pace. Unless, I would again submit that, unless Drug Regulatory Authority become autonomous, completely autonomous, not reporting to any ministry, just like SCCP and other OGRA or PAMDA or whatever, they have to become an autonomous, no ad hocism. I think they will work better for Pakistan, produce the desired result that as for last 20, 30 years. The other thing that in a neighboring country, I'm not going to use the word because that word will these days is not good because of the political reasons or the things are going on across the border, that they support their pharma industry, left and right. There is an organization called Pharmaceutical Export Council, Pharma Excel. They provide 24% subsidy for every dollar being exported out of India, neighboring country. In Pakistan, we have to pay all kind of fees, an exorbitant fee on any permission we get from a drug regulatory authority, because they have to become self-sustained financially. So what they are charging, they are increasing fees and over and above. When they will become autonomous, I think we need to, then we will on a equal level, we will have a level playing field. So we can do things better. My problem is this, that the world is moving from the pills.
Sorry, Wahid sir, we've lost you, it seems. That is a very important point you were making. Wahid sir?
I think he was saying that we need to move to bio.
Okay, go ahead. Tammy, you take over. Go ahead.
He's talking about moving out of, I mean, he's really talking about Pakistan moving with the times, but it's like saying run before you can crawl over here. We really need to start crawling first, and we really need to work on getting this industry back on track. He mentioned the McKinsey report. It came out in 2010. The government of Pakistan commissioned McKinsey to write a report or to prepare a report on different sectors of the economy that could boost exports for Pakistan. This was funded by the Asian Development Bank, and pharma was one of the 3 industries they highlighted. Now, that report went to die in the Planning Commission. It has never been read, I think, by anybody. I'm looking at you also, Nadeem. And I think I even sent it to you. I've sent it to everybody. Anybody who comes into government, we send it to them, but I don't think they read it. And because if they had, they would act on it at least. And if not for pharma, they would act on it for the other 2 sectors. But there has been no action. But McKinsey said all you need, because this industry gets no subsidy from the government at all. It is one of the highest taxpayers, it gets no subsidy. So all you need to do is you need effective regulation. You need effective policy. And if you have effective policy and regulation, you can take this, at that time, $150 million export industry to 1 billion within 5 years. Now, 10 years have gone by, nothing has been done. So maybe we've lost a few $1 billion here or there, but we can't afford to lose it. We really need to get back on track. And this is why we are all saying, the entire industry is saying that you should have one policy and you should sustain it. Today, I believe they are sitting in cabinet to change the 2018 policy. Now, if you don't have predictability, no industry can function. You need to allow a policy to work for X number of years. The other thing is that you need to allow the industry to grow, move, as we are all saying, move pricing and all commercial matters away from the draft, give it to somebody who understands it, depoliticize this issue, and let the industry grow. No one is saying the 770 companies should go and die somewhere. Why should they? Why can't they become toll manufacturers? Why can't they manufacture generic drugs? There is a shortage, you said, in the country. Manufacture, make them cheaper, but make them to a certain standard and quality.
Fair point. Okay, guys, whoever wants to ask questions can raise your hands now. We're going to open up the floor. But Tammy, while they are doing that, let me just react to your thing about the McKinsey's report. I think you also probably missed the newspapers. I had a debate with McKinsey's in the media, in the press, and many McKinsey's people are still smarting over it because I did finally find the report. First of all, the report never came to the Planning Commission. Secondly, when I found the report, it was in a series of PowerPoints, which were unreadable. Thirdly, I went all the way to New York to ask them to come and present it formally in open, like a webinar, to give us. Even today, I call Salman all the time, come and talk to us, come and talk to us. McKinsey is a profit-making organization. They are not there to do any good service. And quite frankly, they didn't want to discuss the report then. They just still don't want to discuss the report. And I will still invite them through you to come and present the report to the people of Pakistan, because it is the people of Pakistan who commissioned the report and not some lobbies or not some particular agencies. McKinsey owes it to us. They took our money. Asian Development Bank didn't give them money from Asian Development Bank. It was Pakistani money that was loaned to us that we gave them. So it's our money. And McKinsey owes us that report. It should tell us what it did, not a series of PowerPoints that are meaningless, and not a report that is not peer-reviewed or stands to the scrutiny of the Pakistani intellectual. Pakistani people. Pakistani people must review these reports. I'm against reports being done by donors and others that are not reviewed by us. So that's my little take on that. But the second thing—
So all said and done on McKinsey, that's fine. But there are some good things in those PowerPoint slides because we went through them in detail. And I think that, we should at least— I mean, we paid $1 million for this. We should at least utilize some of the information.
Tammy, we paid $5 million for it, and this is not about McKinsey's. You said this, so I clarified the point. Because you made the contention that nobody read it. I told you we read it, and we wanted to discuss it. But we can't do anything when the author doesn't want to discuss his report. The author, it's incumbent on the author, and I say this now publicly, it's incumbent on all donors and all consulting firms to not hide. They must give us their reports. We paid them, the people of Pakistan, not the
government. Okay, so you paid them and they didn't do anything, but we have whatever we have with us. We should at least utilize what we have, which we're not doing, unfortunately.
I mean, again, this is not a dialogue. We are doing whatever that's why we are holding this webinar. We are reaching out to you. But the question is that it is up to the consultants, and please, you hire these people, tell them to give us the reports. Tell them not to hide them. If they stand behind their work, they should not hide. I stand behind my work.
I think we're talking at cross purposes here, so maybe we can have.
We are making a very important conversation here because, quite frankly, McKinsey's and all these guys throw out their name as if they are the gospel, as if they are saints. But for God's sakes, I submit only one thing: peer review. I submit myself to peer review. They should too. Anyways, go ahead, Ji. Yasser Saab, your turn. Yasser Saab.
Hello, thank you very much. I just have a simple question because I was in the webinar on healthcare in last couple of days, and I'm very much interested in this topic. I want to ask the honorable panel here, is that without addressing that 80% out-of-pocket expense by the people, like in Pakistan, most of the people pay out of their own pockets. Without addressing that, how can we address the issue of pricing, either it's of any healthcare, including drug pricing? If anybody would like to answer that.
Okay, we'll get to it. Let me collect a few questions, Tammy, then I'll come back to you. Tahir Dinsa. Tahir, your mic is not on.
Yeah, now it's on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Very simple question. One, that even the Pfizer did not invest anything. Pfizer, which is the largest company in the world, so-called, they are producing heart medicine and cardiology and all, we know that. They did not invest in basic manufacturing except Glaxo in the heydays, and the salt is imported from China and repacked, and the same salt China export to India and other partner on a different price differential. Second, there's an open offer to Aisha. If you just share that McKinsey report with me, I'm a journalist and I'm prepared to talk to you and publish it somewhere and produce it as a video as well. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Aisha, why don't you answer these questions first? Then we'll go back to the floor if necessary. Go ahead, Aisha, please.
Okay, so just to clarify, I represent the Pharma Bureau. I'm not a pharmaceutical company. So I cannot comment on any particular company. But I can just tell you that when you talk about out-of-pocket expenses, there is no health safety net as such in Pakistan. But if you look at the pie of healthcare expenditure, drugs are approximately 10 to 11% of that. The other 89 to 90% is doctor's fees, tests, hospitalization, etc. So the cost of medicines is actually the lowest part of your healthcare expenditure. Not to say that, you know, it should not be picked up by some kind of social safety net. I completely agree. We did talk to several governments, and we did make suggestions to them that when you have these income support schemes, or now there's an SAS scheme, you issue these cards, and why can't you connect that person with the card to some kind of health insurance scheme? And one of our member companies, in fact, suggested that they would, for $1 per person per month, $1, $1 US, that's now 165 rupees per month, would take care of the 18 major diseases that they identified that would be taken care of in that $1. But that was not picked up by any of the provincial governments, because this now comes under the provincial governments. You know, so there are schemes, there are things that are available, but there has to be some kind of cooperation also from the authorities. You cannot, as I said, pharmaceutical companies can do X. They can set up patient welfare access schemes, etc., for expensive medicines, but they cannot take care of everything. So, but they are willing to cooperate, to work, to help, because a lot of these companies in their parent countries have foundations, and they work through those foundations. So this was one scheme that we did propose, but it was never picked up. Even the oncology scheme, it took forever to get it done, because the government of the day, and this I'm talking going back to 2004, 3 or 4, somewhere, they wanted to tax, they wanted to put a duty rather on the free medicines that were coming in, which made no sense. So they said, we're not going to give it for free and pay duties. That's crazy. So this is one thing. As far as companies investing, there are very few MNCs with plants in Pakistan today. Pfizer has invested. They do have a plant that I know, I've even seen it. I've been there. So they do have manufacturing facilities, but very few MNCs now have manufacturing facilities because they are disincentivized to do so. If, as I keep saying, if you incentivize the industry, they will bring the money in, they will set up the plants. Why wouldn't they? It is cheaper to manufacture in Pakistan than it is to manufacture in the US or Switzerland or Germany or the UK or anywhere. We are much cheaper. We have excellent human resource. We have well-trained people. Do you know that the pharmaceutical industry is the highest employer of university graduates in the country? So, we can grow this, but you have to let the industry grow. All that has happened for the last 20 years is the industry has been stymied. So we need to move from a position of complete distrust to a little bit of trust, and let it be on both sides, and let both sides work together. But you can't come swinging a mallet and then say, okay, now, why aren't you investing?
That's a common problem. I think I agree with you, Aisha. Manzoor Saab? I think Manzoor Saab can clarify some of these points. Manzoor Ahmed Saab?
So, and also Mr. Tahir, I will get hold of the report. I'll send it to Shahid and he'll get it to you.
Okay.
And anyone else who wants it. Ji.
Absolutely. Please do.
Ji.
Tell McKinsey's we are happy to publish it for them, but they have to come and do it.
We've been saying it to McKinsey also. We had the same problem. We've been fighting with them and saying, come and do a... But that's not my issue. My issue is that we have something which has some data. Let us as a country, as an industry, as the government together analyze that and take out what's good. Anything that works, let's use it. Let's use it, let's build, let's do it better.
Manzoor Saab, are you there? Manzoor Saab, go ahead.
Hello.
Manzoor Saab, go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me? I'm having some problem with my internet.
Go ahead, Manzoor Saab, we can hear you. Jesus.
Sure.
Manzoor Saab, sorry, lost you. Acha, Tahir Saab, you want to say something again?
My voice is coming.
Boliye.
Yeah, very quickly, in response to Aisha, the Pfizer do not have a manufacturing plant. They have the packing plant. They import salt. Only the Glaxo produce cephalosporin in Lahore, and even one of, I don't know which cephalosporin, they stopped production a couple of years back. Otherwise, Pfizer do not have a production plant. I have also seen that plant many a times, and that's a packing plant, and that's a wrong impression. They only repatriate, they had been repatriating all the profit and did not reinvest it. And just another incident, there was a antibiotic Pfizer was producing. They did a cost analysis and they stopped here and start producing in Turkey when their MD was a Turkish and started importing that medicine. So they had been not very kind. They had been following a business model, and I would completely agree with Dr. Nadeemul Haq that the competition regime was totally absent in the early days.
So, ठीक है. Aisha Bibi, ये बताइए, you said Pharma Bureau. Can you explain to us what the Pharma Bureau is? Because we really don't know. It's worth knowing what the Pharma Bureau is. Oh, Kaisa Saab is back. Good.
Oh, good. I asked him to come back on. The Pharma Bureau is the trade association for the research-based multinational pharmaceutical companies operating in Pakistan. So all the MNCs, and we only have, there are only 24 of us.
Okay, okay. And what kind of work do you do?
Me personally?
No, I mean the Pharma Bureau.
The Pharma Bureau does, we look at, we do research, analysis, statistics. We help write policy. We talk to the government. We look at industry issues. We try to address them with the regulators, with industry. We represent the industry on all bodies that the regulator, has all these meetings, etc. We are like the Pakistan Manufacturers Pharmaceutical Association, except our members are only MNCs.
Well, let me say this, regardless as your partner, please give us your data and your stuff. We are happy to collaborate with you. We are looking for collaborations across Pakistan on research, trying to figure out things, because I think research is a collaborative effort, and we should all pull ourselves together and work together and help each other, provide research to the government. And that probably is one way to sort out problems. Because I think one of the reasons these problems not enough problems. Ji, kaise sab bataiye? Ji.
Can I make a comment? Very recently, we are going to face very soon shortages of medicine, because unfortunately, 60% APIs, that is active pharmaceutical ingredient, are being imported from our neighboring country. And one fine morning, our beloved government has stopped importing or allowed to import APIs from our neighboring country. It was quite shocking for us, because there are a good number of molecules which are not manufactured anywhere in the world, like anesthesia gases. They are only manufactured in our neighboring country. And without those gases, those are life-saving gases used in anesthesia, any operation cannot be done. And there are other diabetic medicine, they're being imported from our neighboring country. But when they are not going to come into Pakistan, there will be a great shortages of medicine. That new predicament we are going to face very soon. Pharmaceutical industry in Pakistan is producing very good number of medicine. I said once time that if all the government hospitals use Pakistani manufactured medicine, be multinational or any national company. So if there are not good medicine, they are not saving the life, the mortality rate of the government hospital will be much higher. It is less than 1%. You being the PIDE, sitting at the PIDE, you know the exact numbers. You can check it. That is less than 1%, the mortality rate in government hospital. And they use Pakistani manufactured medicine. They don't use imported medicine. See, the other thing which can help us is that medical insurance has to become in Pakistan, become part of paradigm, of a healthcare paradigm. Unless the health insurance won't there, we can see, won't get a right kind of treatment which they deserve. Thank you.
Sorry, could I please just say something right here? Tahir Saab mentioned that Pfizer do not manufacture. I've just clarified from the CEO of Pfizer. They manufacture everything except injectables. GSK does obviously manufacture injectables, but Pfizer manufacture everything except injectables at their plant. Also, I would request that rather than make it company specific, this discussion, because I cannot call every CEO and ask them, either you get the CEOs on these webinars and have them answer these questions. But I think that if we can just keep it to the topic and not company specific, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
But by the way, Aisha, please tell those CEOs we are happy to host them, because I think this is the only way we can learn, if we talk to people directly rather than make up our own minds. So we want to do this regularly, because quite frankly, otherwise there's too many theories and rumors flying around. So it's better to hear it directly from the people. So anyways, let's go to—
the next thing is that they manufacture.
Yeah. Ahsan Malik Sahab. Ahsan Malik Sahab of the Pakistan Business Forum. Ji, Ahsan Malik Sahab.
Well, can you hear me? Because I was muted until now. So I think Aisha has done a great job in trying to list all the issues that are confronting the pharmaceutical industry in Pakistan. What I was hoping, though, was also to hear about what are the impediments to us becoming an exporter of pharmaceuticals. Our neighbor across, just taking one example, African continent, they export $3 billion worth of pharmaceutical products. And that represents 20% of the entire imports of pharmaceutical products into Africa. Just one single country, 20%. So there's a significant market there. In Central Asian republics, which happen to be, by the way, almost next door to us, they do about $150 million. I think our entire exports, and I'm taking a wild guess here, is probably $50 or $60 billion, and not significantly more than that. And I would stand corrected on that if I'm wrong. The fastest growing pharmaceutical company in Pakistan, to my understanding, is a company called Getz Pharma. They keep growing, and perhaps Aisha could talk about that. What is the model that they follow, and why can't that be followed by others? They also have a marketing network in parts of Africa, in Vietnam, I believe, and perhaps in some other parts of the world. I know that they also do have recently established a manufacturing facility in Malaysia, but I dare say that perhaps may not be the sole supplier of these foreign, sales outlets that they have. So I'll just stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ahsan. And what I'd like to say here is that the impediments to export are price, basically. You cannot manufacture something for 10 rupees that actually costs you maybe a little more than 10 or 10 even, and then export it for 10, because you're not going to make anything of it. The other thing is that unless you have is approved by at least the WHO or something, and these approvals cost a lot of money. To get FDA approval, we don't have a single FDA approved plant in Pakistan. We have very few WHO approved facilities. We have one MRHA approved facility, which is the UK facility. So there are no approved facilities in this country. So you can't export, because companies require your plant to have those approvals before they'll give you export orders. Even African countries, they become quite stringent. And so if you can't manufacture at a reasonable price, you can't export. It makes no sense. And as I said, these approvals cost huge amounts of money. Kaisar Wahid Saab will tell you the exact figures, I'm sure. But I do know that it's in the tens of millions of dollars to get these approvals. The other thing is that as far as the company like Getz is concerned, I know they have one WHO approved facility, a small facility, but they have made some investment. But as far as I'm aware now, they are really doing, most of their exports are going from their Malaysian facility. The exports from Pakistan, they are the largest, no doubt, but I think it's approximately $50 million.
Okay. So Nadeem, can I just react to one or two of the points that Aisha made? I totally agree, price can be an impediment, but I'm sure export pricing is not controlled by DRAP here. That must be regulated by local countries. Secondly, your point about FDA approval is, I think, very valid. But I'm very intrigued. A country of 220 million people, the multinationals had a head start in this country. For many years, we only had multinationals operating here. And I would submit, with due respect, that multinationals actually don't really export significant amounts anyway from Pakistan. So it's a chicken and egg. What comes first? You will never get the scale if you don't try to open up your markets across Pakistan. I can well understand the multinational parent companies perhaps do not wish Pakistani subsidiaries to encroach upon their territories abroad. So I can quite understand that. But nevertheless, a country as large as Pakistan surely could have merited an FDA-approved facility, and I wonder why it hasn't.
Okay, so I'll just quickly respond to that. One is that the price does make a difference, because if you are, say, priced at 10 rupees in Pakistan, then you can't export it for more than, say, 10% more to another country. So they're not going to take your product at more than that. So it really doesn't make any sense. And as far as the FDA-approved plants are concerned, multinationals used to invest a lot of money in their plants and put them up to the best manufacturing standards. And they still do. All the investment that has come in through MNCs upgrading their plants. But you're right, they do not export much. We exported to Iran, but that was stopped recently. And we export to Afghanistan, but that has issues. We still export to Afghanistan, but there are significant issues with exports to Afghanistan. But there is no reason why multinationals can't be doing toll manufacturing. And they have the ability, the capacity, but again, to export, if you're doing toll manufacturing and you want to export, you have to then spend significant amounts of money to take your plant and get it FDA approved or EMA approved or UK approved, wherever. It's a very, very, very big expense. So there is no reason why it can't be done, but you have to allow this market to deregulate. And I want to also be very clear, there is nobody in the pharmaceutical industry saying, open the floodgates. They're saying deregulate and do it gradually. Allow the prices to increase slightly and then let the market take care of it. So you allow everybody to increase, say, 10% a year, and then the market will kick in about 2 to 3 years. But in the meantime, you won't have hit people with 200% and 300% or 100%. You will have done 10% a year probably. And you will then see a situation where everybody comes in and they start regulating themselves. They become competitive. And again, if you allow toll manufacturing, you are creating huge advantages for the population of this country, because they're also then going to benefit from these better quality medicines.
Kaisar sahab, aap kuch kahenge? Kaisar sahab, are you there? Kaisar sahab is probably not there. Acha ji, Manzoor sahab, are you now able to give your...
Okay, can I ask? Hello? Well, I had two questions. They've been partially answered, but one was about this raw material. Sheikh Saab pointed out that it's now stopped from India, and so very soon we might have another crisis. Medicines. I mean, once we run out of this raw material, whatever we have, is somebody looking at any alternate sources or something has been done? That was just one. My other question is, there was a point made about contract manufacturing and said that it's not allowed. But does the government give any particular reason as to why we stop it and everybody else allows it? And sorry for just one more point. Aisha just said that they allow, we can export at only 10% more. Is it our government's regulation or is it the importing country? I mean, normally my understanding is that, whatever highest price you can get, our government has no problem with it. Maybe you're selling it here for 10 rupees, but you can sell it abroad for $10. So we have no problem. What's blocking us? Thank you.
Good question.
What's blocking us is that the country that imports is not going to be willing to pay more than an additional 10% at most. And as far as raw materials are concerned, we import our raw materials. Again, you have to look back. If you have not allowed the industry to grow, then obviously there are no facilities in Pakistan to produce these raw materials. You need to allow the industry to set up facilities to produce raw materials, at the moment, there is no way we can compete with China and India. And as far as changing sources is concerned, it takes anywhere between 9 to 16 months to change a source, because you have to go through all the testing. So these are impediments which should not be there. If you want the entire country to stop buying from India, which by the way is also single source for a lot of drugs in the world, single source. For example, a lot of the snake venom and anti-rabies can only come from India because they have the same kind of problems, the same snakes and dogs, etc., that we have. China may not have the same. But if you want us to completely shift, you have to allow the imports to continue, and you have to allow industries to do this gradual shift over and give them that period of 18 months.
जी शेख साहब, वहीद साहब, आप बताएंगे कुछ? क्या सर वहीद साहब?
Sorry जी, I'm here. देखिए, सबसे बड़ी बात तो ये है कि हम बगैर सोचे समझे कुछ फैसले कर लेते हैं हाईएस्ट लेवल पे, जिनके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस बाद में पता लगते हैं। पाकिस्तान में देखें, हमने देखा कि पाकिस्तान में जो स्नेक वीनम के बारे में जो एक प्लांट NIH में था, स्ट्रिक्ट नॉट प्रोड्यूसिंग, दे इंपोर्ट बल्क फ्रॉम इंडिया and refill it here. Even anti-rabies, they are unless we make a that health is than the politics. If we merge politics and healthcare, then we will end up in a big problem. And the nation of Pakistan, people of Pakistan. We are trying our level best, and Tammy is Aisha rightly mentioned that to change the source, we need validation. We need stability studies, which needs at least more than 6 months concurrent stabilities. We need to do that, and then the validation of the source. It's not an easy job that we change source every now and then, because we are talking about the human life. We are talking about the medicine. It's not buying sugar from one source another. We need to validate that buying even a sugar or excipient, even inactive, we need to do the validation.
Great. Bashir Saab, you had a question? Bashir Saab?
Yeah, okay. Assalamu alaikum. It's a midnight here, so it's a little bit drowsy. Yeah, it's really, I want to appreciate, because I got a chance to find it out how the things are. I was expecting more activity. I thought that pharmaceutical industry is a very old one, but it's disappointing that we are such a low level. I work for Allergan, just retired. And Allergan had only at some point, they were planning, only one outside United States was in Pakistan in 2000 almost at that time. Anyway, so, what I see here is it's a very good effort. I think Dr. Haq, you really made, at least all of us will find it out how the things are. But I think now the things should move. I'm very disappointed that we don't have research. Find any pharmaceutical industry, any R&D in the United States, you will find a Pakistan, anywhere. But we don't have R&D, so that is very, very amazing. So I think in some sense, we should really, whatever it is, it looked like the pharmaceutical industry, same like the sugar industry. They want something so that they could do something. I don't see, I was looking into their roadmap that we are on the contract manufacturing, or we want to do the generic. These are two not very difficult things. I think if they can just go, they must be making money in some other cases. So I think if we look into the research, I will start in the 2-3 ways. Whatever you presented is the industry right now, what their position is, and we understand it. They have problems, government should address it. But Dr. Haq, I think this should be a first one series, right? I think there should be a series, especially, I'm telling you that we have patients, we have population, we have the best doctors, and why we cannot do R&D. There has to be a roadmap. A lot of countries, I started contracting with India in 2003. They have absolute no infrastructure. And we wanted to do something in India and they don't have any infrastructure. We were disappointed, but see where they are right now. Okay, so what I suggest is if we can, I'm not right now, even pharmaceutical industry in United States, they are not very much in R&D. Some 5-6 years ago, we had two huge buildings for R&D. They closed it. It's a different model. The model is that, let the scientists work, and when they are in phase 1, go and buy the compound and complete phase 2, phase 3. So it gives you very good opportunity, as a scientist. So I think at some point, we should, this research now has to shift to the research centers, biological research centers, medical research centers. I think the research should go there now. I don't see pharmaceutical industry is really, it was not a very good policy. At that time, we thought it was a good policy. Now I see it's not really a very good policy, but that is the culture now. I am working with consulting with the startups. They're working, and we just, one of the companies sold his compound to the Allergan, basically, and make a lot of good money. So I think if we can have, our talent is new drugs. Anything other than this, I don't see Pakistan should be going on that. So yes, it's a marketing, you can make a lot of money, but I don't see pharmaceutical industry right now during this presentation. I didn't get a really good clue, a roadmap that from 60 million, they can make 2 billion. I didn't see it. There are a lot of, maybe I didn't follow all the things. I don't know the culture. This is the first time I'm interacting, basically, this first time. So I think it should, if we have a series where we can say that how the research, especially the discovery, this is where we should look into it, where we can put the what the infrastructure is needed to have this discovery thing. China started 4 or 5 years ago. And I think now they have a lot of startups for the discovery. Before it was not like that. So I think we should, Dr. Haq, we should have this a little bit more focus, discovery. The other thing is that tap in the expertise available go to the United States, you can find every type of person everywhere. So I think you should build a small list, what type of people are there. So I think we should go for the discovery, why we are behind or how we can start up this. Then the industry, as we are doing here, is that industry should be linked with these discovery activities. So there should be some collaboration, because so that if there's a compound, if it goes to phase 1, if, for example, good discovery scientists in Pakistan develop a molecule, a group of people, they go there and they do it. I have friends, they were the discovery scientists, and one of them is Pakistani, actually. So for example, if they all go and they work there, it's the same. And they come up with a molecule with a phase 1 study, the pharmaceutical industry has to be there. Nobody else will come from outside, take it phase 2, phase 3. So this is another path we should consider. One path is what the industry is doing. I think they should expand. One should give the target to them from 60 million. You have to make it 1 billion. You have to make it 2 billion. You have to make it 3 billion. I think whatever is needed, there should be very clear roadmap. But I think on the other side, on the parallel, we should have some discovery pattern. The one thing which I'm a little bit, my first question was, which I later on a little bit get answer. What percentage of the total pharmaceutical sale is by public health, and how much is private? Okay, can somebody give me a rough estimate?
We'll come to that, Bashir Sahab.
Sir,
very good.
Sorry,
Bashir Sahab, you made some very good points. Please, hame apna contacts ra dein. We'll get you involved. We're going to do a series of webinars on this. Hum isko chhodenge nahi. We'll try and find out more. Shahid Sahab, you want to raise something? Bataiye.
जी sir, but very quickly, Bashir Sahab ne jo point raise kiya, the point that Bashir Sahab raised about research and development, I just want to go through it very quickly. Aisha and Dr. Kaisar have already spoken about it. Okay, one thing that we need to understand, one thing that really distinguishes the pharmaceutical industry from other industries is that right at the back of the drug that you buy, right at the back of that packing, you will find the formula for manufacturing that. What that means is that it's pretty easy to copy it, right? If you don't have IP rights, and Aisha spoke about it, what intellectual property rights are there afforded to this industry? Why should they invest their time, their research, and $3 to $4 billion in finding out new molecules if it can be copied that easily by somebody else? So there is no incentive. Other thing, there is so much uncertainty regarding there is no roadmap in terms of government policies. Bashir Saab asked the question, kya roadmap ho sakta hai? There is no roadmap. There is so much uncertainty. Just let me point to the fact that last year, within a span of 1 or 2 months, there were 2 SROs regarding pricing. One SRO was regarding the increase in prices, but within a month that was taken back through another SRO, which decreased the prices. So how exactly is anybody in this kind of uncertain environment? What's the incentive for MNCs or local pharmaceutical industry to invest their resources? There isn't any. There isn't any.
ठीक है शाहिद साहब, एक मिनट, let me come back to वहीद साहब, sure, and come back to Tammy. वहीद साहब ये बताइए, I think quite frankly बहुत बात हो रही है कि रिसर्च भी हो और वो हुकूमत करे. आप लोग कह रहे हैं स्विचिंग करनी है मॉलिक्यूल्स की तो वो हुकूमत करे. आप लोग कह रहे हैं कि हमें FDA लैब बना के दे तो हुकूमत करे. मुझे बताइए 770 इंडस्ट्रीज जो कि माशाल्लाह अच्छे खासे अपने आप में
डॉक्टर साहब देखिए, you know, we are not asking charity, we are not asking subsidies from government. This pharma industry is the only industry which never ask any subsidy. Never. ये historical fact है, ये documentaries है कि we don't go for subsidies. और
molecule switching आप क्यों नहीं कर रहे? Molecule switching
जो हम R&D की जो बात कर रहे हैं, we are asking that the money, billions and billions are kept in the fund, R&D fund, which is the industry money. It should be given back to the industry so that they can do the research, they can do development, they can work with the universities and can do the thing which Bashir Saab is asking. But we give money to the government and that money is never returned back or any benefit given to the industry. That is the problem.
गवर्नमेंट ने ले लिए वो पैसे. मुझे ये बात बताइए, आप लोगों ने पिछले 30-40 साल में कितनी यूनिवर्सिटी को कमीशन किया, रिसर्च कितनी कमीशन की है? तैमी आप बताइए आयशा बीबी कि आपने माशाल्लाह आपकी फार्मास्यूटिकल इंडस्ट्री जिसके पास मोनोपोली थी, आप 24 फर्म जिनके पास मोनोपोली थी शुरू में, उन्होंने
First of all, please don't use the word monopoly. It's a really derogatory term. We've had serious issues on this. I will request you to actually delete that from your record. There is no monopoly. Because you cannot have a monopoly when your prices are controlled by the government, as you well know. So there is no question of a monopoly.
Have your firms commissioned any research through the universities?
We have commissioned research. We have also supported research. We also, as Kaisar Wahid Saab said, pay 1% of all gross profits, not net, gross profits, to the government, to a central research fund. We have been asking them for the longest time that allow that fund to be used properly, put it into research. We know for a fact that there is no research in Pakistan. Our companies do research. They do it outside of this country because we are not researching in Pakistan as such, right? But if you look at the whole world, as I think the gentleman from Allegan said that, Bashir Saab said that there is, pharmaceutical companies generally are not doing much research. There's been no vaccine research in a long time, and now because of this COVID crisis, everybody is doing research. But the real benefits of that research we're now seeing not from necessarily from pharmaceutical companies, but from universities and other centers like that who've been continuing to do research. So I know that in Pakistan, the AKU is doing a lot of research on stem cells. They have a very good unit. They're doing a lot of work here. So we need to encourage that.
Which agency?
The Al Khan University Hospital is doing research. They have a very good unit. All I'm saying is take that 1% of money that has been sitting there. And so you can imagine 1% of $3 billion a year is a lot of money, and it's being accrued for I don't know how many decades now. So whatever money there is, I'm sure a lot of it has vanished and fallen through the cracks, etc. But whatever money there is, why don't we invest it in these centers like the AKU, like NUST? There's so many universities, FAST, there are hundreds of them all over the country that are doing work. Let's invest, let's build these universities up, let's put that money in there, get them to do some real work, not run water taxis and water planes or whatever, but some serious work. And I think that, you know, we need to focus on the fact that we have a potential which we are not using. So let's stop beating it up and let's use it. Let's be constructive. Let's not just keep saying, you are bad, you are evil, you are big farmer, you are little farmer, you are useless farmer, you are counterfeit farmer. Let's use this industry. Let's use it for the benefit of 220+ million people in this country.
See, we are not trying to beat up on anybody. Please don't get that impression. You're just trying to find out.
Monopoly. You have to watch the language though. Monopoly, bad word.
Already with. But Kaisar sir, my point is very simple. कि जी 770 agency, माना government ने आप सोचें government ने आपसे 1% tax ज़्यादा ले लिया, so they've taken 1 more %. But now there are still 770 people. What I find very interesting, and I did this on I did a paper on entrepreneurship a while ago, and I talked to many industries. And what I find is that industry groups are very, very reticent of trying to develop common properties, like for example, research facilities, or like for example, work with
Nadeem, you're very unclear. Could you speak a little louder?
Achha, sorry.
A little louder.
Let me do that. Okay. What I'm saying is, KG, quite frankly, many groups, not just yours, many industry groups are very reticent about creating common facilities, like common research labs, like common this thing, what you call it, testing facilities. I think these things industries should be ready to do on their own. Many of them are looking to the government. I've also been in the government. I've seen many industry groups came to us and said, please charge us a cess for research. And I always used to tell them, please don't accept this charge for a cess for a research, because we know way back from the Cotton Committee that these cesses are not used for proper purposes. But the industry groups themselves want this cess. So I find also, let me turn the question back to you, and this is not criticism. Can you people not work together to develop a facility to be able to do common testing at a fee for profit? Can you people not get together to do a facility to set up a molecule switching program where you can switch to different countries? Or do you have to wait for government leadership? Kaisar sahab bataiye. Kaisar sahab, mic aapka nahi on.
Yeah, okay. Now, it's a very valid and timely suggestion that the big pharmas or big brothers can put their act together and do the collective things. It is a good suggestion. It can be done. And in the world, this is happening, that these companies can join hand and make a separate company to do the R&Ds and research. And then they get collective benefit out of it. This is good suggestion, can be done. The question is this, that what our universities are doing. You know, we have an HEJ, Hussain Ibrahim Jamal, which has the latest world-class latest equipment. But did they produce any single molecule? Did they produce, except they are producing PhDs, good for nothing. They just awarding degrees, but they are not doing. There's the latest, I think atomic microscope in Pakistan, there are only 2 or 3. One is lying in HEJ. And we as a pharma industry approached to them anytime, that let's collaborate and find out the molecules or processes which are needed by the population of Pakistan, because we have certain disease which are specific to Pakistan, which need drugs and medicine for those kind of disease. They are very specific disease, which many in the world, these are obsolete now, those disease or whatever, those are obsolete. But we need medicine for those kind of disease because of our nature of socio-economic condition in Pakistan, the poverty level, and the other kind of issues. But unfortunately, we could not convince them to come up with a valid kind of research which is beneficial for, which can be commercially viable, which can be commercially be done. The other is the lust, and now another institution very soon coming up in Islamabad, which is probably gonna run by our brave soldiers. Let's see, they are talking very high. They want to go into Pharma 4+, which is going to be different kind of thing. Let's see what they can come up with. That kind, the institution which they're going to develop in Pakistan, because they can, they have a muscle, they have a will, and they have a discipline to do something. Let's see. But the universities have human resource, universities have material, universities have instrument which they can do the research. In Karachi, because I am associated to one of the medical university, Dodge University of Health Sciences, and just helping them to develop these kind of vaccines. We have tried to contact Chinese companies. We have, because there are a lot of COVID patients in that hospital, because it's a premier institution for treating COVID patient, corona patient in Karachi. So we have contacted the Chinese companies. So we are ready to help them to do the clinical research for the vaccine which those Chinese companies gonna develop soon. So we are in a process to convince them. But every university need to do that kind of thing. They have to approach the companies. They have to approach the healthcare professional to find out what is needed by the population. Pakistani population को क्या चाहिए? ये वो बताएं. And pharma industry is ready to collaborate with them. हम नहीं कहते कि गवर्नमेंट करेगी. Obviously, उनकी गवर्नमेंट की प्लेट पे बहुत कुछ पड़ा हुआ है ना, worries and troubles and issues. You know, there are a lot of problems going on. What we just asking the government, return what is due of the pharma industry. Just हम लोग वो और कुछ नहीं मांग रहे. कभी फार्मा इंडस्ट्री ने सब्सिडीज नहीं मांगी. हमने सिर्फ ये कहा है कि जो हमारा हक है वो हमें वापस कर दो. हम सिर्फ ये मांगते हैं कि the regulators make right kind of the policies which are internationally recognized. I'll give you one example and Tammy will bear me out. Nowhere in the world psychotropic के लिए एक dedicated section चाहिए. Psychotropic यानी drugs which are kind of narcotic kind of thing like pethidine, morphine kind of thing. Nowhere. WHO, FDA, Food and Drug Administration, MHRA, DGA, or any regulatory body in the world doesn't say that psychotropic need a dedicated section. In Pakistan, Drug Regulatory Authority want us dedicated. For skin, antibiotic powders, which you normally have a scar and put a powder on it, they need a separate dedicated section. So in a factory, you need 100 of section, which is not viable. Which is not viable. These kind of policies, we want that Drug Regulatory Authority should think economically, think what is happening around in the world, and they implement those policies.
Rahim Saab, Arshad Rahim Saab, last question.
Sorry, could I just say something before Arshad Rahim jumps in? I'd just like to say that with regard to common labs, etc., and testing facilities, the Pharma Bureau has done a lot of work trying to train and upgrade government labs, train the personnel and upgrade the labs with equipment, etc. And we were quite successful. And then we were very grateful that the PPMA also joined us in this. And together we did this for a few years. And then the DRAP themselves stopped this. They did not want the industry to be involved in the upgradation of labs and training of staff. So that was one thing. I agree with Kaisar Wahid Saab. We could possibly look at and think about setting up our own labs, but our labs would then have to be accredited by the government. That means the DRAP, and they would have to agree to accept the results of those labs, which may be a problem for them because we all know that whatever it is, there are issues that remain. Graft is an issue, and it remains. As far as research is concerned, I'm not clear, so I don't think I can comment on this, but I'm not clear how companies can come together to do research, because they make huge investments, and then the whole issue of who owns that research and how is it going to be disseminated and stuff. So I'll look into that and I'll get back to you on that.
Sure. Arshad Rahim Sab?
Can everybody hear me? Am I unmuted now?
You're fine. You're fine. Boliye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry I joined a little late, and if you allow me just a few comments and a question. I really, Tammy knows me very well. Dr. Kasser Saab knows me very well. All the pharma industry knows me very well. I'm a old person of this industry, and I just wanted to put some clarity into this, that there are three things about the pharmaceutical industry. One is innovation, which is R&D. The other is basic production, basic raw material production, and the other thing is formulation industry. What we have is a formulation industry, and we are so well set up. Whatever we've described here is that as a formulation industry, we have a unique and tremendous opportunity of what we want to say about earning billions of dollars. And
what is the formulation industry, please, for those of us who don't know?
Formulation industry is bringing together various raw materials and putting it in a sort of a delivery system. जैसे liquid होता है, tablet होता है, capsule होता है, ointments हैं, मुख्तलिफ तरह की ये चीजें, ये एक specialized हुआ है. It's not a simple thing that you just put some powders together and you're producing some concoction like this. It's not like this. It's a very sophisticated processes that bring together a formulation for the purpose of a patient's consumption. Basic research is innovation, and truly it requires research in what kind of research needs to be done before any research in molecules can be done. And basic raw material can only, it's a question of economics. If the economics are there, the economics have to be determined on the basis of the scale. And if we are going to think that we can manufacture for Pakistan only, I don't think that will be feasible. But we have to play on the world stage. So the neighboring country that the I word we don't want to use, didn't set up their, or the C word, they didn't set it up because they wanted to service the domestic industry. They wanted to play on the world stage. So before we go into these two areas, the biggest opportunity for us is in the formulation industry. Our industry is well set up to cater to, exploit itself for big time exports. And that McKinsey report, I have read it. I was part of the Pharma Bureau at that time, and we all promoted it and projected it and presented it at various forums. There are some valuable top line, headline directions in it, which can be picked up, and then it can be tailored to how we can move forward. But my question, and here is really, I'm sorry to take up a little bit of time, is that the local pharmaceutical industry, the PPMA and the members of PPMA also bear a huge responsibility in driving the process of the policy. Also, each pillar needs to play its role. DRAP should play its role and not encroach into the industry role. They can't become profit controllers. They have to be patient-centered, and their focus has to be quality. There has to be availability of medicines, and it's not about it's about access. It's not about price. वो जो word cheap इस्तेमाल होता है ना, that's a very derogatory, wrong word. We're talking about access. How can we bring access of quality medicines into Pakistan? And quality is principle. The other thing that the industry needs to play its role and put its force behind policies that they need to get a fair return on their investment, and they need to then deliver on it. When the industry says that we need this, and if the government gives it to them, the industry then has to deliver on its promise. Often we have seen that the industry has fell short of it. So there I also have a question for the industry to please pull up your socks, get together, and make this as a priority that yes, we are going to go for this export. And why doesn't the pharmaceutical industry do that? I don't understand. And the third thing, which is a very valid thing, and it's not a small thing, is about R&D. Collaborative research between the industry and the academia is very, very important to target it towards what is required by our patients. We can't just do blind and free research which has no, I appreciate Dr. Kasser Wahid's comment that, you know, research and development organization has done a lot of research, but what has it delivered to for the patient? So research is needed to see what kind of research is required. So this is what I had to say. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist making this.
We need knowledgeable people like you. So don't worry, we are always happy to hear from you. बल्कि आपको next webinar में लेके आएंगे because we need to really upgrade this discussion. Bashir Saab, quickly, because you're ending up, Jili, aap kariye.
Ajay, you know, I just want to, I think really, you know, the Arslan, yeah, Mr. Arslan, I think that is what I was saying, right? Looking at, listening to the presentation of the pharmaceutical industry, it is formulation. I think it's a really potential. I see the infrastructure. I see the things. I think pharmaceutical should not stay away from the research for the time being. I will give you a very brief comment. I think they should put a target. They should come up with a roadmap that within these many years, this is the formulation. I think I agree 100%. You know, I'm just making a comment. This R&D, I want to little bit because I was involved. We moved from industry-based research to startup-based research. It's not the universities. So we should really study, it should be a separate activity, is that how these startups are now working. It's a really entirely different structure, different culture. And if you want to learn, when COVID finished, go to China. China just started last 5 years. Every startup culture started within last 5 years. So Pakistan is not behind. What you do is you invite people. China did is, and Israel did it too. What you do it, you discovery scientists all over the world, wherever they are, you invite them to come to your country and provide them all the facilities so that they can start up, they can create their startups. You have the testing, blah, 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 and they will come up with the compound. That is the culture, that is the infrastructure China did, and they are successfully, actually within 2-3 years, they moved fast. So I think we should not rely on these universities. It's a little bit different things. We can, in a different session, I think it's a good idea to look into it, how the other countries are doing, so that you can come up with a good roadmap on developing new molecules. I just want to a little bit clarify on this research.
Bashir Saab, Rahim Saab, dono, please apne numbers shambas bhej de. We will get in touch with you to extend this debate. Meanwhile, let me give the last word to both Aisha and to Kasser Saab. Please, can you give your last, thoughts on the various things that have been raised as closing remarks?
Sir, then allow me to say a few words too before going.
You go ahead. Go ahead, Aisha.
Well, number one, thank you very much for doing it. Being very informative and very useful, and I hope it's cleared some of the misconceptions. And I think that it's really important that we have started this dialogue and we can continue and take it further. And a lot of the suggestions that have come from so many of you are really excellent. And we'll come back to you with more answers and better answers, obviously, because, you know, nothing is ever satisfactory. But I think that what I would really like for us as Pakistan to focus on is actually growing this industry. And as it starts to grow, then to take it onto the international scene. And once we're on the international stage, we then have the wherewithal, the resources, the funding to get into research. At the moment, on a very serious note, we don't have the money in Pakistan to do the kind of research that is required. And it's a huge amount of money. So we should start first with setting up labs. Once we set up good labs, we can then move forward after, you know, but these things will require not just the commitment of the industry, it requires the commitment of the government as well. They cannot put in more impediments in our way. Every day is a new battle. So rather than constantly firefighting, let's just get on with doing some work and not waste our energies in idiotic things, but actually do something seriously constructive for this country. The world is going through a pandemic. We are as well. We need to develop things in Pakistan. Why aren't we making ventilators, and why aren't we making face masks, and why aren't we making a million other things that we should be making in huge quantity? Because if the second wave has already started in some countries, our first wave doesn't seem to be ending. This is the only tsunami we are going to get, folks. So let's take it seriously. And anytime you have anything on pharmaceuticals, the industry, healthcare, we are very happy to participate and be a part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Taimi. Bahisa?
Sorry. सबसे पहले I'll just ask one thing and it's just one comment कि खुदा के लिए ये सरकार हमें काम करने दे. हम बहुत अच्छे लोग हैं, हम पे यकीन करें कि हम बहुत अच्छे लोग हैं, हम माफिया नहीं हैं, हम खराब लोग नहीं हैं, हम कारोबारी लोग हैं. डेफिनेटली हम मुनाफा चाहते हैं, जायज मुनाफा चाहते हैं, लेकिन हम खराब लोग नहीं हैं. जिस तरह की पिक्चर पेंट की गई है हमारे बारे में, खुदा की कसम पाकिस्तान में जो दमाग साजी के कारोबार में है वो तो मुजाहिद है. वो मुजाहिद है. वो जिस तरह का फेस कर रहा है चीजों को मीडिया में, आप ऐवानों में जाएं, पार्लियामेंट में जाएं, everybody is saying that some kind of we are rascal, or what kind of people we are. We are providing the basic need for the patient, for the ailing humanity. We are not doing something, we are not producing toffees and chocolate. And as I said earlier, that if anybody in the Sarkar need to understand, check any Sarkari hospital, the government hospital, that how many patients get treated with Pakistani medicine and how many patients, God forbid, died because of Pakistani medicine. If they get that kind of a data, they can understand what kind of service we are providing. The most economical medicine produced in Pakistan, provided to the humanity in Pakistan. We need to understand that. I think, all the facets of this society understand that we are doing a good job. We are providing the needed thing for the patient, and kind of this pandemics and stuff like that, and new kind of things are coming in, new kind of diseases are coming in. If you snub pharma industry in Pakistan, God forbid, if Pakistan has to import medicine, so they won't have any dollar left for defense or for the salaries of anybody in Pakistan. Every penny, every dollar will be spent on importing medicine, I bet. And you can do, because you are sitting at the PIDE and you are the nerve center, you are the brain, you know better than anybody. You can understand better than anybody what kind of money when they import is $3 billion is nothing, which we are selling. And 99.9% population are using those medicines, getting well, getting out of the hospital. See, those medicines are with hydrocortisone. It's saving millions of lives in a hospital in Pakistan. Are they importing hydrocortisone? No. This is manufactured in Pakistan, which is being treating COVID patient, ICU. So we need to understand that Pakistan pharmaceutical industry is the savior of the nation. They are the second defense line in Pakistan. We need to understand this. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Rohit Saab. Shahid Saab, what do you want to say? Bataiye, last word.
Yes, sir. Last word, just very quickly. एक तो सर ये कि हम अक्सर we bemoan the fact that there is no research, meaningful research. You bemoan it a lot, and rightly so. Now, this issue of the which is, as Aisha said, it is most contentious issue, the pricing. Now, when we went through the price freeze of between 2001 and 2013, what government statistics show is that in that price freeze, which was enacted so that the prices of medicine shouldn't increase, Pakistan Bureau of Statistics show that actually within the out-of-pocket expenditures, the expenditures on medicine increased from almost doubled in that period. So that's a complete failure, even by government statistics, of a policy of price freeze. But we still want to regulate prices even after that episode. The thing is that unless we understand unless we conduct study and unless the regulator, how to properly regulate that market, things are not going to get right. You have to make decisions upon research, upon logical reasoning, and by sitting down with the industry officials. You can't change a whole policy, or you can't run a whole policy and industry on SROs. That is not possible.
Thank you, Shahid Saab. Thank you very much. Aisha, thank you. Wahid Saab, thank you. Bashir Saab, thank you. Rahim Saab, everybody, all the pharmaceutical people. I've learned a lot today. I'm very happy with the webinar. I think, quite frankly, we need to study all our industries in detail. And I agree with you on a number of things, but there are some questions that remain. So Wahid Saab and, Bashir Saab, etc., all of you, please, we will collect you again and do this again, because as I said, even though it's whatever it is, 770 companies, we don't want them to die. We don't want people to not grow this industry. Obviously, it should grow. Whatever it is, formulation or whatever, it has to grow. One thing I was very happy to learn today, that we have something in common with India, snakes and dogs. So that was very, very good to learn that we have at least snakes and dogs in common with India. But let me just simply say, look, we've conducted a number of webinars, including investment, including sugar, including cotton, including energy, etc. Everywhere there is one monster, which is government. And it's not to say that we are free market or government. It's just government is doing unthinking, bad policy. There's no research behind the policy. Research is not just for producing drugs. Research is for doing anything, including policy. And unfortunately, we build up these regulatory agencies like NEPRA, DRAP, etc., who don't do policy. And there's no research in the government. Unfortunately, they place all kinds of retired people in these places, and there is no staff that does very well. So we've got a big, big problem. And then the other problem that we've also noticed, even in the FBR, when an agency can't do its job, it blames the people. So FBR, for example, blames the people. It says, you are corrupt. I do my job fine, but you don't pay your taxes. I mean, this is nonsense. The point is, FBR's job is to collect taxes and have a good tax policy. They've got a bad tax policy, bad compliance. We've done webinars on this too. We've written about this too. When you have a bad policy, bad everything, you can't make things work. And then the bad workman blames his tools. He will blame his people. He say, oh, no, it's the industry's fault. No, so I'm sorry. I agree with you. You're badly blamed, and it should not be blamed. We have to put merit into our regulatory agencies, and we have to clarify what they're doing. Unfortunately, we don't. But on the other hand, there is also a problem that our industry also, I don't know what it is. We've had a webinar with your big people. I won't name them, but you can go see it on YouTube. Your big people also, I mean, big Seths, they also admit that there's a Seth culture in our industries, that they want to grow at home, but they don't want to grow internationally. There is a kind of a mental block in us too. We don't like to go to Africa. I used to live in Sri Lanka at one point, and I used to tell all my friends, industrialists here, come to Sri Lanka, there's a market waiting for you, and nobody would come to Sri Lanka because they wanted to go to London. So the problem is also in our Seths, that they don't really want to grow the market. They're quite happy to play golf at Synth Club and be big fish in the local market. So there's a problem, mindset problem. And this came out not in this webinar, but in other webinars. But in here, we also notice another thing that we've noticed in other webinars too. There is the trade bodies, you know, all these, I wouldn't name anyone, but all these trade bodies, they become lobbying bodies. They're not trade bodies for sharing information. They're not trade bodies for collaborating. So for example, one thing that comes out very clearly, hey, I mean, I was reading this book on the Silicon Valley. They did a lot of collaborative work. It's not as if they had cutthroat competition, but they did a lot of collaborative work. And I'm sure when we talk to Bashir Saab again, we'll find out even pharma industries out there do collaborate. They have cutthroat competition, but they do collaborate. I find here, when we went to Salcode, for example, there's very little collaboration taking place. We use these bodies only for lobbying, not for collaboration. I think that's a big problem. Secondly, we don't think internationally. We have to begin to think internationally. That's a mindset issue. So that, but again, we'll come back to this again and again. Finally, the question of McKinsey's and donors, please use your good offices to tell all consultants, all donors, a report is not a report unless it's reviewed by our people. A report, a hidden report is not a report, and nobody should take it seriously. When I was in the planning commission, people used to come to me all the time saying, hey, listen to me. I said, why should I listen to you? Because I have all the ideas. I said, well, if you've got ideas, then put them down on paper and let people read them. No, I can't do that. You tell the Prime Minister to listen to me. I'm sorry, policy is not made privately. We've done that often enough, backroom kitchen policy. And that policy leads us into trouble. That's how the metros were made and we got into trouble. That's how so many power projects were made. We got into trouble. We're going to study the power projects on Friday. We have gotten into a lot of trouble because of kitchen policies. So no donors, no consultants should have a hidden report. PIDE is a platform. We provide you with this platform. We are happy to host everybody. Tell the donors, tell these guys, present your report to people like you, not me, to everybody. This is an open thing. Let's hear what people have to say. Why are we scared of putting our ideas out? So with that, thank you very much, folks. Really enjoyed it. Great webinar. Please, I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. Inshallah, see you every day when we do our energy level. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Saab.